Hi, Ron. I've just initiated the recording. I hope that's all right with it.
That's great, Nupur. Thank you. I hope we have everyone's consent for that. Uh, and yes, there's also some in-person events I think that are and convenings that are happening in Delhi on heat and cooling. But it's always more convenient for us to join online and also have this thought sharing kind of seminar. So as you know, all of you must have seen the way we have structured this is we have five panelists from diverse groups. We have civil society organizations, practitioners who've been working on the ground for extreme heat mitigation. We have important officials and guests from the state disaster management authorities, people from IMD, and of course GIZ that has been spearheading this entire work piece on extreme heat and integrated climate risk in India in partnership with Sphere India, ADRA India, and also the NDMA at the ministerial level. I'm very glad and welcome Meghna. Good to see you here today. Um, Before I hand over to Meghna to set the context from the German-Indian bilateral cooperation and the work that GIZ has been doing, I just wanted to set the context a little bit for today's discussion. It's an important topic, but it's also a new topic for a lot of us, which is anticipatory action. And in very simple terms, it means all of the actions and inputs that we put into our response before a disaster strikes. And like we were talking about how this is the appropriate time for us to be convening this because we're right on the cusp of the first heat wave of 2026. So to get together, explore solutions, and also get everyone's insights on what their understanding of anticipatory action and early action is. I think we have some wonderful experts who can share their thoughts with us. So with that in mind, I'm going to hand over now to Ms. Meghna Shirsagar. Meghna is a senior advisor at GIZ based out of Delhi, and she has been guiding and leading a lot of the work on climate change, on extreme heat, on a number of thematic areas that are very relevant and very pertinent um, in today's day and age. So Meghna, yeah, thank you for all that you've been heading, and yeah, over to you to please share a little bit about GIZ's work on extreme heat. Thank you.
Thank you, Rohan. Hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So thanks for the kind introduction about the work. I think someone's mic is unmute. Okay, all right. Yeah, thanks. And thanks to ADRA India for conceptualizing this very important, pertinent discussion in the form of a webinar, and Sphere India to actually make it happen. And, we are trying to do this for a couple of weeks now. And now today we are actually able to deliver this. And like Rohan said, a lot of these discussions are happening around. So today I was also in one or two forums organized by different agencies talking about heat wave, the today's declaration by the IMD that even Delhi is in the orange alert. So I think we are at a right time and almost crossing the cusp and addressing this issue, like how we can actually prepare the early warning systems, at the same time prepare ourselves for planning instead of planning for the prevention. So, with this, pleasure to meet you all. Good afternoon. I can't anymore say a very warm welcome because we are already warm and hot from the climate and weather. Esteemed speakers, experts, and practitioners joined us in this webinar. A very pleasureful welcome to you all. Just to begin with, we all know that for decades heat was seen as a silent hazard through predictable, seasonal, and almost manageable. But today, heat is no longer just an environmental concern. It's a human systemic challenge. And so as we move forward with a lot of these initiatives and actions in place being taken by various agencies, also from the policymakers, the central question remain that whether heat risk will intensify. Yes, of course. But whether our human system will be resilient, equitable, and responsive enough to protect people and economies is the alarming question. I think with today's discussion, we will try to reach to some sort of a solution that what is required in terms of the planning and early warning system in place. Before I actually go into what we are doing with ADRA India and also with NDMA, Ministry of Home Affairs, I would like to introduce you who we are, whom I am representing here. So myself, Meghna, I'm working as a project manager for a project called Integrated Climate Risk Management in German Technical Cooperation. We are an international cooperation. Like multilateral cooperation, this is a bilateral cooperation working on behalf of German government. It's being almost 50 plus years cooperation between India and Germany, and GIZ is a representative on German government's behalf, working on different aspects of development sectors. And largely, we have 4 verticals in India where we are actually cooperating with Government of India. Largely environment, climate change, natural resource management, the wing which I am part of. Sustainable urban and industrial development is another vertical. Social and private sector development is the third one. And the last and very pertinent one is the energy, which is quite an alarming situation at the same time. And for India and Germany, a major topic for the cooperation, technical and financial. So this is what we are doing in India. We are almost working in entire country through different ministries. From German side, we have most importantly, 4-5 ministries that do a lot of cooperation with different ministries in India. Currently, with different ministerial thematic programs, we are collaborating with 18 ministries. And our project is with Ministry of Home Affairs and its implementing agency, which is National Disaster Management Authority, NDMA. What we are actually doing with NDMA and MHA. So this is a kind of a co-designed project by NDMA and GIZ India that we actually got the financial cooperation and technical cooperation from Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. We call it BMZ. It's a German ministry. Both the ministries, Ministry of Home Affairs and this BMZ got together. We designed this project with NDMA, and now we are implementing it with different partners. And ADRA India is one of the very important implementation support partner who is supporting us in all sort of on-ground implementation, capacity building, training programs, and almost every component of the project. Now, what is this project all about? So like we are talking about heat wave, this project is called Integrated Climate Risk Management, where the larger aim is to build the technical and institutional capacities of states and national level officials and institutions for integrated management of heat wave impacts. And we foresee that after this project, almost after 3.5 years, this capacity will be strengthened in some sort. We all know the policy perspective of heat wave. We are experiencing it like for last 5 years now, almost the temperature increase, which is happening every day. We are experiencing whether it's winter or in summer season. Of course, summer it is more prominent, but when it is winter, we also seeing that winters are prolonged. It is not like winter that the way we used to be called in Delhi. So accordingly, in this project, what we have co-designed with NDMA are the 3 verticals again. And before I go into the verticals, I also would like to share with you what this project is actually targeting. So this project is not like as a pan-India program. This is very geographic specific. We are implementing this project in Delhi state. And within Delhi also, we have specific districts for our pilot implementation. Apart from Delhi, we are implementing this project in Maharashtra. And within Maharashtra also, we have a very specific geography, which is Amravati. Many of you, the experts, practitioners here and already working and talking about the heat wave, you know that Amravati is one of the aspirational district of NDMA for heat wave. And we know that historically also Vidarbha region of Maharashtra is always been known as the hot region, uh, whether it is summer or any other weather condition. So agroclimatic zone of the Vidarbha region is anyway very extreme hot. With these two geographies, we have 4 sectors to focus in this project, because within the project boundary and the resources available, we cannot go like every sector. So with NDMA, we decided like we will touch base our ground implementation around 4 sectors, prominently health, because heat and health are like, very directly proportionate. Housing is another one. Green spaces, which is increasing green belt in these areas. And then the drinking water, which is also one of the most prominent solution to avoid and to treat the heat stroke. There are 4 target groups also, because again we have to be very specific and have our limitation when we implement the pilots and ground level interventions. So farmers in Amravati are our major focus target group, and within farmers also we are focusing women farmers. Then for Delhi, we are largely focusing on gig workers, and we all know, like, gig workers, the outdoor delivery partners, are the major people who are actually directly getting impacted because of the heat and the heat stress that we are experiencing from last 5-6 years most prominently. Construction workers are the other outdoor workers. And then we are also targeting informal settlements, because there are no such specific means for them to actually deal with this increasing heat stress. The 3 verticals that I talked about that we are trying to address in this project is the capacity building and training. We all do that, and we are also going to come up with training modules in this project. But here we are not only talking about building the capacity of the target group or the frontline workers, but at the same time the officials at SDMAs, NDMAs, DDMAs, because they also need a lot of sensitization, awareness, and technical capacity building for addressing and managing the heat wave. We are also thinking like coming up with a digital support system, kind of a tool where it will support decision makers to take decisions through AI driven data, where the data from IMD will also be aligned, and at the same time the global best case practices will be available for the decision makers to take specific actions for heat wave management. The second most prominent vertical of this project is basically to come up with financial solutions. Now, what is financial solutions? We all know that all of us are trying to come up and design some sort of financial products as to facilitate, compensate our target groups, those people who are outside and outdoor workers. What kind of compensation and facilitation we could provide them in terms of financing solutions? We know some of them. Insurance, parametric insurance is the most successful one so far. Risk transfer facilities, climate bonds, catastrophe bonds that we know. All these are there, but this project will first pilot test at least 4 financial solutions, and then one of them will be implemented with our target groups as a trial and error method, and then ascertain that yes, one of these financial product could be used to facilitate and compensate our outdoor workers. Apart from that, what we are doing right now, and we are already on ground with our pilot interventions, and we will be doing some 3 to 4 pilots, which is around our sectors: housing, health, green spaces, and water. And entire this knowledge that we will be generating from our training capacity building, our financing solutions, and at the same time pilot implementations, we will be then disseminating it to different platforms internationally and nationally. And this is one of the means is today we are starting this kind of an inception with all of you, thinking that this is how we are going to share the knowledge and the learnings that we will be gathering from our project implementation in due course. I would also like to highlight that to begin this project, we actually, GIZ India team and ADRA India did a landscape assessment just to ascertain what is the gap in terms of policy, in terms of practice, and overarching how should we design the pilot intervention and training modules. So the landscape assessment actually we conducted in last 4-5 months in our geographies and ascertained some recommendations. Imran, if you could share the report. We have already come out with the report of landscape assessment and planning to release it in one of the event that NDMA is planning to organize. But any which case, this is a final report from our side, and it will be available for all of you. Just to take a reference from the report, what it actually says, what are the gaps in the geographies that we are mentioning, and what kind of recommendations we have been mentioning there, particularly for these 4 sectors and 4 target groups. Just to touch base, actually, we were very specific when we were going for this landscape assessment, because the target group and sectors are very specific for us. What we touch base is basically employment and economic insecurity. I request someone's speaker is on. If you could mute yourself. Thank you so much. So for landscape assessment, there are 4 or 5 components that we actually covered, and largely we looked into economic and employment security, because the target group is so specifically working outdoor. Health and heat stress risk. Then poor access to water and cooling and rest spaces, because we all know these are some of the very prerequisites to at least maintain the heat stroke and heat wave. Technological and infrastructure barriers. So almost all via NDMS SOPs, all SDMS and DDMS are working thoroughly, but still there are these gaps that we found. And then lack of social protection and regulation. That's where we are talking about the financial solutions. So I'll just take a pause here, because there are other speakers. But I would urge that you all should see and read this landscape assessment report. Though we will be very specific in our interventions around sectors and targets, but it is pretty overarching, and many of the recommendations could be used by many other agencies who are already working in these geographies. I think, Rohan, I'll hand it over to you for the time being. And maybe if there are any questions or any queries, I'll be here throughout.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Meghna, for really wonderfully encapsulating all the work that you're doing under this initiative of GIZ with the different partners, also, with ADRA on the ground. You touched upon a couple of very interesting and pertinent, topics that we would like to discuss at length also, and that, we have in our agenda, specifically, extreme heat and equity. Even within your INCRIS project, you're targeting women farmers, you're targeting outdoor workers, construction workers. These groups form the very, marginalized sections of our society, and as we all know, extreme heat affects the marginalized, very disproportionately. And that's something that, we would also love to discuss at length. I have, however, received a request from Dr. Aditi. Dr. Aditi is a senior official of the Uttar Pradesh State Disaster Management Authority. Ma'am has another meeting to join, so she has requested to go first. So Debadrata, I will come back to you. I know you are in the
It's
agenda,
absolutely
but
fine.
yeah, handing over to Dr. Aditi. So, Dr. Aditi, firstly, thank you for taking the time out and joining us in our webinar. I know these must be very busy days for you in Uttar Pradesh as well. But, ma'am, we would really like to, hear from you regarding your experience as, a representative of the state. Something that Meghna also touched upon, the work that we do in communities and on the ground, whether it's awareness and other things, that's only half the story. The other half is, are these warnings actually getting translated into actionable advice for communities on the ground? So, ma'am, our request from you is, if you can just share your experience and expertise on, things like early warning, the messaging reaching the, end user and end consumer of this, and how does it actually work in such a vast state like Uttar Pradesh, the largest state in India in terms of population, and also one that is very severely affected by heat. So yes, ma'am, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting me to this platform. And Sphere India is one platform which is doing great works for last many years. And I congratulate you for bringing out these kind of discussions and discourses, because this is very important for us. Whenever I talk about heat wave, I always discuss that this is one problem जिसके जो शॉर्ट टर्म सॉल्यूशंस जितने जरूरी हैं उतने ही जरूरी लॉन्ग टर्म सॉल्यूशंस भी हैं। अगर हमने दोनों को अभी राइट नाउ टुडे आज से हमने एड्रेस करना दोनों को के लिए ही शुरू नहीं किया तो बहुत लेट हो जाएगी, हम एक्चुअली बहुत ज्यादा परेशानी में होंगे। जो छोटे धीरे धीरे मतलब बहुत छोटे इम्पैक्ट वाले डिजास्टर्स होते हैं उनसे निपटना भी उतना ही आसान होता है। हीट वेव जैसी आपदाएं, अगर तापमान बढ़ रहा है तो बहुत बड़े भूभाग का तापमान बढ़ता है, तो उसको मैनेज करना, उसको प्लग इन करना, उसमें कुछ करेक्शंस करना, वो उतना ही धीरे होगा। ये धीरे धीरे ही चेंज भी हुआ है नेगेटिवली और धीरे धीरे ही पॉजिटिव चेंजेस भी आएंगे। तो मेरा मानना ये है कि अगर हमें हीट वेव को एड्रेस करना है तो हमें 2 वे स्ट्रैटेजीज बनानी ही पड़ेंगी। और उत्तर प्रदेश में पिछले कई वर्षों में हीट वेव के संबंध में बहुत काम हुआ है। न सिर्फ जन जागरूकता के क्षेत्र में हम आम जनमानस को जागरूक करते हैं, जितने माध्यम हो सकते हैं जो लोगों तक पहुंच बनाने के, चाहे वो रेडियो हो, न्यूज़पेपर हो या टेलीविजन हो या और कोई तरीके हो, ग्राम सभा की बैठकें हो, तमाम उन तरीकों के माध्यम से हम अपने कम्युनिटी के लास्ट पर्सन तक पहुंचने की कोशिश करते हैं कि हम उसे बता सकें कि आपको हीट वेव से शॉर्ट टर्म में निपटने के लिए क्या क्या करना है, बचने के लिए क्या क्या करना है, कैसे आप स्वयं की जान इससे बचाकर रख सकते हैं, और लॉन्ग टर्म में हमें क्या क्या करना होगा, आपका एज अ सिटीजन क्या रोल है। न सिर्फ सिटीजन अवेयरनेस बल्कि पिछले कुछ वर्षों में लगातार हम विभिन्न स्टेक होल्डर्स के साथ, चाहे वो गवर्नमेंट के विभाग हों या वॉलंटरी एजेंसीज हों, अभी हमने सैटरडे में वॉलंटरी एजेंसीज के साथ में आईएजी के मेंबर्स के साथ में यहाँ पर माननीय उपाध्यक्ष हैं उत्तर प्रदेश राज्य आपदा प्रबंधन प्राधिकरण के, तो उनकी अध्यक्षता में एक बैठक आहूत की गई जिसमें कि सारे जितने वॉलंटरी एजेंसीज के आईएजी के मेंबर्स वो सारे उसके पार्ट थे। उसके एक हफ्ते पहले सारे राज्य स्तर के विभागों की बैठक की गई जिसमें सभी विभाग, क्योंकि हीट वेव का प्रबंधन सिर्फ डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट डिपार्टमेंट या डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट अथॉरिटी नहीं कर सकती, इसमें हेल्थ डिपार्टमेंट का रोल आएगा, इसमें लेबर का रोल आएगा, इसमें एजुकेशन का रोल आएगा, इसमें विमेन एंड चाइल्ड वेलफेयर का रोल आएगा, इसमें इंडस्ट्रीज का रोल आएगा, इसमें बहुत सारे विभागों का रोल आएगा। तो होता क्या है कि विभाग अपने अपने कामों के दबाव के नीचे इतना ज्यादा मतलब इतना वर्क प्रेशर उन पे रहता है, तो कई बार वो इन विषयों को जो एक तरीके से उनके कार्यों के लिए उनके विभाग के दृष्टिकोण से देखें तो ये अलाइड सब्जेक्ट्स हैं, हमारे लिए तो ये मेन सब्जेक्ट है, बट फॉर देम इट इज एन अलाइड सब्जेक्ट बिकॉज देयर वर्क डोमेन इज समथिंग एल्स। तो ऐसे में हीट वेव को या डिजास्टर्स को प्रायोरिटी में लाना, उनकी मेन स्ट्रीम में लाना, इसके लिए हमें बार बार प्रयास करने होते हैं और हम करते हैं। अभी जैसे हीट वेव के लिए हमने स्टेट लेवल डिपार्टमेंटल कॉन्फ्रेंस कर ली, हीट वेव के लिए जिले के अधिकारियों की कॉन्फ्रेंस कर ली, हीट वेव के लिए वॉलंटरी एजेंसीज की, एनजीओस की, सिविल सोसाइटी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस की हमने कॉन्फ्रेंस कर ली। तो इस तरीके से न सिर्फ कम्युनिटी तक आउटरीच बढ़ाना बल्कि हम जो इसमें स्टेक होल्डर्स हैं, एक्टिव पार्टनर्स हैं, जो एक्टिव एक्टर्स हैं, उन तक भी उनके रोल्स को लेकर जाना, उनको रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज बताना, उनको प्रोटोकॉल्स के बारे में एक्सप्लेन करना, और इसका जो ओवरऑल फ्रेमवर्क है हीट वेव मिटिगेशन का, हीट वेव मैनेजमेंट का, उसको उन तक लेकर जाना, ये हम करते रहते हैं निरंतर। इसके बाद फिर इसके अलावा तीसरा आपका जो बिंदु था, आपने कहा कि इसकी जो चेतावनियां हैं, पूर्व चेतावनियां, उनका प्रसार कैसे हम लास्ट माइल तक करते हैं, कैसे जन जन तक करते हैं, और किस तरीके से इन चेतावनियों को लोग एक्शन में ट्रांसलेट करते हैं। ये बहुत अच्छी बात आपने कही। कई बार ऐसा होता है कि आपने देखा होगा पास्ट में कि कई बार ऐसा होता है कि तमाम पूर्व चेतावनियां मौसम विभाग तो देता रहता है, लेकिन वो जिसके इस्तेमाल में आनी है वो चेतावनियां, वो अलर्ट्स, वहां तक वो पहुंच नहीं पाती। तो अभी गत कुछ वर्षों में इस पर बहुत काम हुआ है, अलर्ट डिसेमिनेशन पर बहुत काम हुआ है। सचेत ऐप उसमें बहुत एक ऐतिहासिक अचीवमेंट है कहना चाहिए। बहुत ही अच्छा एप्लीकेशन है। मौसम विभाग या अन्य जो तमाम जो अलर्ट जनरेटिंग एजेंसीज हैं, वो जो अलर्ट जनरेट करती हैं, वो ये सचेत ऐप ट्राई के माध्यम से हमने सारे मोबाइल सर्विस नेटवर्क्स को इसमें जोड़ रखा है। और जिन क्षेत्रों के लिए वो अलर्ट जारी होता है, फॉर एग्जांपल लखनऊ के लिए कोई अलर्ट जारी हुआ है कि लखनऊ में या बांदा जिले में आज तापमान 45 डिग्री रहने की आशंका संभावना है, और इस तरीके से ये करें, ये ना करें, तो हम सिर्फ बांदा जिले में जितने मोबाइल यूजर्स हैं उन तक हम संदेश को रियल टाइम में प्रसारित कर सकते हैं। और रियल टाइम में प्रसारित करके एक इसके साथ ही राहत आयुक्त कार्यालय उत्तर प्रदेश द्वारा एक इंटीग्रेटेड अर्ली वार्निंग एप्लीकेशन भी बनाया गया है, जिसके माध्यम से हम कॉल्स भी करते हैं, कॉल्स भी जाते हैं, लाखों लाख करोड़ों करोड़ कॉल्स हम भेजते हैं, ताकि अगर कोई व्यक्ति मैसेज नहीं देख रहा है तो उसको कॉल्स के माध्यम से भी हम अलर्ट कर सकें कि आपके यहाँ, आपके जनपद में ये अर्ली वार्निंग या चेतावनी आपके जनपद के लिए जारी की गई है। और उसमें सिर्फ अलर्ट नहीं रहता, बल्कि उसमें क्या करें और क्या ना करें उसके बारे में भी हम विस्तार से उसमें बताते हैं, ताकि उसको पता रहे। विभिन्न विभागों की तैयारियां सुनिश्चित करने के लिए निरंतर उसकी मॉनिटरिंग की जा रही है। जैसे स्वास्थ्य विभाग में है, स्वास्थ्य विभाग में तो वैसे ही इन जनरल वो तैयार रहते हैं, कोई भी रोगी आएगा, पीड़ित आएगा किसी भी रोग का, तो वो उसको अपने यहाँ लेकर के ट्रीट करने के लिए उनका मैंडेट है ये। लेकिन हीट वेव के लिए स्पेशल वार्ड्स बनाए गए हैं सभी हॉस्पिटल्स में, और इन उन स्पेशल वार्ड्स में जो स्पेशलाइज्ड नीड्स हैं हीट वेव को फर्स्ट एड देने के लिए, हीट वेव को ट्रीट करने के लिए, वो वहाँ बेसिक फैसिलिटीज पहले से उपलब्ध हैं, ये मान करके कि हीट के दौरान हमारे पास इस तरीके के ज्यादा केसेस आएंगे। हीट वेव की भयावहता उतनी ज्यादा पहले नहीं थी, लेकिन कुछ वर्षों में हम देख रहे हैं, लास्ट टू लास्ट ईयर in Uttar Pradesh we lost roughly more than 60 lives last to last year in the year 2024. तो इससे ये परिलक्षित होता है कि हीट वेव ऐसी कोई चीज नहीं रह गई है जिससे हमें नुकसान नहीं हो रहे। पहले हमें नुकसान नहीं हो रहे थे हीट वेव से, अब हमें नुकसान हो रहे हैं, और वो रिकॉर्डेड नुकसान हो रहे हैं। तो इसलिए हमारी पूरी मशीनरी स्टेट डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट अथॉरिटी की तैयार है। स्पेशलाइज्ड सिटी लेवल पर काम करने के लिए सभी बड़े शहरों के सिटी हीट एक्शन प्लान बनाए गए हैं IIPH गांधीनगर की मदद से, ताकि हम आइडेंटिफाई कर सकें अपनी रियल समस्याओं को किसी भी सिटी के स्तर पर, और उनको कैसे हम मिटिगेट करना है। फॉर एग्जांपल कोई एक स्ट्रेच है जहां दूर तक पेड़ नहीं है, और वहां कोई वेंडर है, कोई मोटरसाइकिल वाला है, कोई साइकिल वाला है, कोई वहां ट्रैवल कर रहा है या रिक्शा पुलर है, तो वो वहां पर जो लोग चल रहे हैं, अगर उनको किलोमीटर और किलोमीटर में कोई पेड़ नहीं मिला या कोई ऐसी जगह नहीं मिली जहां वो शेड ले सके, तो वहां पर उनके लिए कूलिंग स्टेशंस बनाना, पानी की व्यवस्था करना, और वहां पर सिटी में लॉन्ग टर्म हीट मिटिगेशन के लिए क्या क्या करना है, ये सारी चीजें सिटी हीट एक्शन प्लान का पार्ट होती हैं। तो अलग अलग स्तरों पर जो राज्य सरकार की तैयारी है वो चल रही है। हमारी कोशिश होती है कि हम ज्यादा से ज्यादा लोगों को अपने जागरूकता संवर्धन कार्यक्रमों में शामिल करें। इसी के लिए यूपी स्टेट डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट अथॉरिटी ने पूर्व के वर्षों में समुदाय आधारित आपदा प्रबंधन कार्यक्रम भी चलाए हैं, स्कूल सेफ्टी प्रोग्राम भी चलाए हैं। तो ये जो समुदाय है, स्कूल में बच्चे हैं, जब हम इनको सिखा देते हैं कि क्या करना है और क्या नहीं करना, तो वो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट रोल प्ले करते हैं और बेसिकली वो कैटालिटिक रोल प्ले करते हैं। अब आप देखें, मैं अभी किसी से बात करी थी एक दिन, तो मैंने कहा कि जिस चीज को भी हमें प्रमोट करना है, जैसे हम चाहते हैं कि कोई चीज है वो घटित होने लगे, वो उस रूप में होने लगे, तो हमें उसको फैशन में लाना पड़ेगा। उस चीज को हमें फैशन में लाना पड़ेगा। जैसे अभी हीट वेव से बचने का बहुत बड़ा उपाय एक गमछा है। इस तरीके का जो गमछा होता है, आपने धूप लग रही है तो ऐसे कसकर बांध लिया, ऐसे लगा लिया, ढक लिया अपने शरीर को। तो ये जो गमछा है, अब हमें धीरे धीरे इसको फैशन में डेवलप करना पड़ेगा। पानी लेकर चलना, सत्तू ड्रिंक पीना, ये इस तरीके की चीजें हमें धीरे धीरे अपने फैशन में लानी पड़ेंगी, ताकि वो हमारे जीवन का हिस्सा बनने लगे। पेड़ लगाना, अभी पेड़ लगाने को फैशन स्टेटमेंट बना दिया जाए तो आप देखिए, लोग पेड़ लगा के रील्स डालना शुरू कर देंगे, वो फैशन स्टेटमेंट बन जाएगा। तो हमें जो भी चीज करनी है, जिसको भी हम चाहते हैं कि ये चीज इस सर्टेन वे से होने लगे या कोई सर्टेन आउटकम आने लगे, तो हमें जरूर उसको फैशन से, ट्रेंड से जोड़ना पड़ेगा। तो चूंकि वॉलंटरी एजेंसीज के पास ये बहुत बड़ी कैपेबिलिटी होती है कि वो जनता तक सीधे जुड़ते हैं, आपके साथ जो आपके पार्टनर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन होंगे स्फीयर इंडिया के, वो उनका आउटरीच जितना तगड़ा होता है ना, उतना तगड़ा किसी का आउटरीच नहीं होता। तो आप अपना जो आउटरीच है उसका इस्तेमाल करके अगर इसको धीरे धीरे करके फैशन स्टेटमेंट लाने लग जाए, कोई ऐसी ड्राइव चले जिसमें कि ये हो कि मैंने तो 4 पेड़ लगाए और 4 पेड़ों को मैंने 5 साल तक बड़ा किया। मतलब पेड़ लगाना कई बार स्टेटमेंट नहीं है, पेड़ों को बड़ा करना। कई बार मैं देखती हूँ कि लोग फैशन में पेड़ तो लगा दिया, लोग लगा रहे हैं बर्थडे में पेड़, तो हमने भी 10 पेड़ लगा दिए, 11 पेड़ लगा दिए, लेकिन उन 11 पेड़ों को हुआ क्या? तो ये बोलना कि नहीं, हाँ ये 4 पेड़ मैंने 4 साल तक पाले, या 4 साल किसी पेड़ को पाल दीजिए ना, फिर आपके पालन की उसे जरूरत नहीं होती, वो अपने आप पल जाता है। और हमारे आसपास, मतलब मैं अपने जैसे आपको व्यक्तिगत रूप से उदाहरण दूं, तो हम लोग कई बार स्ट्राइव करते हैं कि बहुत ग्रीन स्पेसेस हों, कूल स्पेसेस हों। तो मेरे घर के सामने एक पार्क है, लगभग मुझे लगता है कि 2-2.5 हेक्टेयर के आसपास का पार्क होगा। हमने उस पार्क में, यूजुअली डेवलपमेंट अथॉरिटीज भी उसका डेवलपमेंट करते हैं, बट उनका डेवलप करने का तरीका एक सर्टेन वे होता है, वो छोटे फूल के पौधे लगाते हैं, घास लगाते हैं। But then what we did, with the support of LDA and holding hands with community members, we did Miyawaki forestation there in that park. Now that park, आप उसके बगल से कभी गुजरते हैं, लोग जो गुजरते हैं वो कहते हैं अरे ये तो बिल्कुल ग्रीन हाउस है, लंग्स ऑफ दिस एरिया है। तो कहने का आशय ये है कि हमको वॉट एवर वी कैन डू इन आवर ओन बेट, इन आवर ओन कैपेसिटी, वो भी हमें करना है, और अपनी इंस्टीट्यूशनल कैपेसिटी में हमें, उसमें भी हमें चीजों को देखना है, और चीजों को देखने के प्रैक्टिकल तरीके हमें खोजने हैं। कई बार क्या होता है कि हम बड़े फैंसी तरीकों में बात करते हैं, वो फैंसी तरीके जो 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 रूम के अंदर तो बैठ करके जिनमें चर्चा हो सकती है, लेकिन जब आप फील्ड में जाएंगे तो जिस तरीके के चैलेंजेस वहां पर निकल के आएंगे, कई बार वो बहुत मैच नहीं करते, इसलिए वो क्रियान्वयन में बहुत दिक्कत आती है। तो हमें जो भी हम तरीका सोचें, उन तरीकों में जो ड्राइव चलाएं, उन ड्राइव्स में हमें ये देखना है कि वो प्रैक्टिकली कितना फीजिबल है। जैसे रन फॉर हीट वेव मिटिगेशन हम कर सकते हैं, जैसे रन फॉर यूनिटी, रन फॉर, और तमाम हम करते हैं। रन फॉर हीट वेव मिटिगेशन हमने कर दिया शहरों में, वहां पर जाकर के हम लोग गमछा बांध के, लोग अपना सत्तू का ड्रिंक ले करके और अपना जो है बढ़िया प्रॉपर तैयारी के साथ अपना वो कर रहे हैं। सो नाउ इन अ वे वी आर प्रमोटिंग, अच्छा भैया जब बाहर निकलना है तो हमें इस तरीके से ही निकलना है। सो वो तरीके हम लोग भी मतलब स्टेट डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट अथॉरिटी में भी अपने तरीके से चीजें, वीसी साहब है हमारे, वो बहुत ज्यादा हीट वेव पर फोकस्ड, मतलब ही इज वेरी सेंसिटिव एक्चुअली एंड टुवर्ड्स दीज इश्यूज ऑफ क्लाइमेट चेंज, हीट वेव, कोल्ड वेव। तो वो बहुत सारी तैयारियां लगातार हम पिछले कई वर्षों से कर रहे हैं यहाँ पर। तो हम लोग तो जो कोशिशें जो जो की जा सकती हैं वो कर रहे हैं। स्फीयर इंडिया और उसके मेंबर से भी अनुरोध है कि जो इनिशिएटिव्स आप लेना चाहें इस विषय के संबंध में वो लें, और हमारे जहां सहयोग की आवश्यकता हो हमें लिखें, हमें बताएं। We'll also like to join hands with your initiatives, and together we definitely can. So with these words, I would like to thank you again for giving me this opportunity to speak to this forum. A lot of people have joined. 97 people are online at this moment. So I think we are reaching to a large number of stakeholders. और बहुत अच्छा है. Once again, thank you so much for inviting me to this.
Thank you so much, Dr. Aditi, for your kind address. आपने बहुत चीज़ों पे टच अपॉन किया, lot of things which are very important, very pertinent. आपने सिटीजन एंगेजमेंट की बात करी, आपने हमारे साथ शेयर करा कि यूपीएसडीए में गांव गांव जाकर कैसे लास्ट माइल लोगों से भी जुड़े हैं, आपके अर्ली वार्निंग सिस्टम्स, आप कैसे वो मैसेजेस पहुंचा रहे हैं। आपने कुछ हमें अपने एड्रेस के माध्यम से सॉल्यूशंस भी दे दिए, something for us to think about, whether it is community level greening initiatives, or how do we involve the larger sections of society into creating more awareness, and also the importance of uh, translating these solutions into, like you said, bring them into fashion, but also हम इनके बारे में कैसे और चर्चा करें, हम इनके बारे में कैसे मेन स्ट्रीम में सोचें। हम जिस सेक्टर में हैं, सिविल सोसाइटी, हम अपना टाइम बहुत लगाते हैं आइडिएशन में, सोचने में, थिंकिंग में, टू कम अप विद सॉल्यूशंस, बट कभी कभी सॉल्यूशंस हमारे सामने होते हैं, जैसे आपने कहा। एंड हाउ डू वी रियली थिंक अबाउट स्केलिंग देम अप एंड ensuring that they are actually creating impact on the ground. So thank you so much, Dr. Aditi, for your wonderful address. And
Thank you,
we hope.
Rohan ji. I would like to leave my number here. I would just
Sure, ma'am.
people who are interested, they can note it down. It is 933
मैं
double
chat
six.
में डाल दूं, मैम?
हाँ, डाल दीजिएगा. मैं बोल भी देती हूँ. 93366128664. I'll repeat 93366128664. हाँ, ठीक है रोहन जी, ठीक है. Thank you.
Thank you so
So
much, Dr. Aditi.
yes, so I wanted to listen to whole of it, but then आपसे बाद में डिस्कस करके मुझे थोड़ा इसके बारे में जो बनाइएगा समरी मुझे प्लीज भेजिएगा, ताकि मैं उसको
जी
एक बार देख सकूं और अपने को अलाइन कर सकूं आपके इनिशिएटिव्स के साथ में. अभी एक मीटिंग है, so I'll have to leave for that, but then I look forward to read that summary of today's program. Rohan ji.
जी मैम, थैंक यू
Thank
सो
you
मच,
so
डॉक्टर
much.
अदिति।
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think Dr. Aditi leaves us with some great thoughts, and also an easy segue for me to move into, the citizen engagement and the community engagement part of this. And for this next session, I am very pleased to invite Miss Debadrita. Debadrita Sengupta is the manager for disaster management and resilience at Reliance Foundation. As many of us know, Reliance Foundation has been at the forefront of building resilience, working with communities, disaster management and response across India through your vast network, and the relationships that you have built with all the stakeholders. So we're very happy, Debadrita, that you were able to join us. And we are at 2:45, so I'm going to request if in 10 minutes maybe you can share with us from your experiences, how is it that we are able to best work with the marginalized communities that are most at risk. I think Reliance Foundation also specializes in working with such communities. So we would be happy to hear from you on your experiences and any guidance that you can leave for the convening today. So Debadrita, over to you.
Thank you so much, Rohan, and thank you for inviting me here. So my discourse will focus definitely on what Reliance Foundation does, and also what we are actually seeing across communities. We basically work with coastal communities, riverine communities, as well as areas where heat and water scarcity are the norms. So I would try to share my experience with you. And based on my experience, what are my realizations? And based on those realizations, what I feel should be, could be a way forward for us. So the topic that has been allotted to me is pretty, how do I put it, pretty complex, because and it also targets the very central point of any kind of community outreach, that no community is uniform in nature. All communities are inherently heterogeneous, and so equity, intersectionality, inclusivity, these become the some of the words to watch out for when we are planning community programs and community outreach, and you are thinking about messaging, targeting those messages to particular audiences, and understanding where exactly the entry points should be, and where exactly we need to be there for the community specifically. So we often tend to trivialize heat as a seasonal inconvenience, but for millions of people in India, it is a livelihood risk, it is sometimes a health risk, and in many cases it is a survival risk as well. So my core focus today will be very simple. Heat is not an equal risk for everyone. And therefore, whatever response we are designing, whatever preparedness we are designing, whatever early warning, early action messages we are designing, cannot be the same either. It has to be targeted, it has to take into account local contexts, and it has to be people centered. So, that is the basic premise that I will be talking about today. Rohan, can we move on to the next slide?
Yeah, Nupur, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So, why is it so very important to understand that heat is not an equal risk? Heat waves, definitely we can actually, if we look at um, the advisories from Indian Meteorological Department over the past few years, or even take a look at any of those very popular LinkedIn videos, we will see that heat waves are becoming more frequent, more intense, and more prolonged in nature. And not only that, where we were expecting heat waves earlier, we definitely still see heat waves, but we are also seeing heat waves, experiencing heat waves in places where it was not usual earlier. For example, if I take the example of the state of West Bengal, south and west parts of the state usually experienced heat waves every year. It is very arid. Sometimes it can be very water scarce, and it experiences heat waves very much. But nowadays, we are also finding the sub-Himalayan foothill regions are also experiencing heat waves. We are experiencing heat waves in areas where it was very unexpected even a few years back. In more temperate climates, in more temperate riverine areas, we are again experiencing heat waves. However, the real issue does not seem to be only rising temperature. The real issue for me is unequal protection. See, heat waves, in scientific jargons, it can be defined in a particular way. But how it affects people differ from region to region, differ from community to community, differ from people to people. The same heat event is experienced very differently by different people. For some people, it may be, I'm experiencing discomfort, I need to switch on the air conditioner. For some other people, it may mean lost income, it may mean illness, it may mean stress on livestock, it may mean damage to crops, and it can also sometimes mean fatalities. Next slide, please. So when we are talking about vulnerabilities, we need to look beyond age. We need to look into the different category of people, different the entire cross-section of the society, the entire cross-section of the community we are working with. For example, if you're working with informal workers, like say, for example, in rural communities, landless agricultural laborers are quite a vast cross-section of people. And they work outdoors and they cannot afford to stop. For example, this particular season is very critical in terms of agricultural practices. And landless agricultural laborers are employed at this particular point, and they have to go out in the morning. They have to work the entire day outdoors, and they can come back in the evening. So they cannot afford to stop. Farmers, livestock keepers, they face direct stress on both their livestock assets, their farming assets, as well as themselves. The elderly, the children, the people with chronic illnesses, they're physiologically more vulnerable. Women who travel long distances to get water for their families, caregivers, they often carry an invisible burden as well as the most visible ones during the heat events. And as, of course, how can I forget about the urban poor? They live in very dense, poorly ventilated spaces with very limited access to cooling solutions, to water solutions, to healthcare solutions, to shaded areas in a very congested city area, if you see. So the very first shift that I think we need to focus on is to stop treating the population as one uniform category and find targeted solutions for each of the cross sections of people. Next slide, please. Now, what I feel is there is a lot of, yes, there is focused, there is early warning, there are bulletins, there are messages, and definitely a huge number of scientists are working very hard and finding amazing solutions to bring out early warning messages and finding newer and more amazing channels to communicate those messages. However, sometimes the chain does break before the protection reaches the person. For example, a warning may not always be localized. It may cover a general area. It may not always be in a language or in a format that is something that a person can understand or can act on. So we need to think about not only local language, we need to also keep in mind a lot of people in our country still cannot read. We need to remember a lot of people may not be able to access written communication, may not be able to hear, may not be able to see. So we need to think about inclusion and intersectionality as well. And frontline systems need to bring that into focus when they're delivering their targeted messages. Institutions need to keep that in mind when they're talking about pre-agreed actions that are linked to specific triggers. That is why it is not only awareness, it is also targeted action that is very important. Otherwise, we are leaving a significant portion of our vulnerable population still exposed to the heat extremes. Next slide, please. Now, how Reliance Foundation works. So we want to see where the chain from warning to action, how does it lie across and where it supposedly breaks. A people-centered response needs to be very proactive. It cannot be reactive. It means we have targeted messaging in readiness. We ensure that the channels of communication are not only written communication, but also verbal communication, also illustrated communication. We need to make sure that those are communication materials that people can access even if they don't understand the language, even if they can't read, even if they can't see or hear or some other thing. It also needs to mean that there has to be targeted action for specific sections of population. For example, shade, water, rest breaks, cooling spaces, adjusted timings. Those are definitely very important and all of us are talking about it. But we also need to keep in mind that, say, for example, a person who is a livestock herder. For that person, that livestock herd is the livelihood. It is their it is the most important asset in their lives, which helps them to survive day to day, which helps them to sustain day to day. So that livestock also needs to have some protection against the rising heat. So what about its fodder, its silage? And we keep on thinking about every single thing in a lot of uniformity. So if I deep dive into this particular example, when I'm talking about livestock security, I'm not talking about only putting the livestock in a shaded area, not only giving it a little bit of water. It also means whether I'm giving it the right fodder at the right time or not, so that it can sustain and is able to sustain the family as well. So there's a lot of opportunities to work in this area. I feel I would not take this as threats or negative things. I would say there is a lot of opportunity for all of us to think out of the box, think of solutions, and think of how we can reach those particular segments of people. It also means prepared services. For example, we some heatwave advisories definitely talk about ORS solutions and other things to keep people hydrated. But we also need to ensure that those things are stocked in the local healthcare centers. Otherwise it doesn't make any sense, because if people cannot access it, just listening to it doesn't make any sense. So those are the kind of frontline readiness that we need to think about. We need to think about curated advisories, whether it is public health, whether it is crops, whether it is livestock, whether it is school readiness, whether it is Anganwadi, access to basic services, mobility. We need to have targeted messaging for each segment of people. And it also means trusted last mile community volunteers, frontline workers, local leaders, and simple communication channels that people are already using. So moving on, can we go to the next slide, please, very quickly?
Deepadrita, I'm going to request you to maybe share
Yes.
last thoughts in 1 more minute. Okay.
Yeah. So in our work, what we have seen creating value is between this in the space between the bulletin and the community. So yes, we have a agreement with Indian Meteorological Department and INQUAS. So we do receive warnings. How do we disseminate those warnings? We have a huge database across India, lakhs of people, and we send out simple local language voice messages that you can just press 0 on your phone and hear if your name and number is there. We also send out curated livelihood related messages curated through Krishi Vidyalayas and Krishi Vigyan Kendras. We send out curated public health messages, which is curated and validated by the local government systems. So similar way, we send out all kinds of advisories before it strikes. For early warning and early action, we send out samples of early action that they can do to protect themselves and their assets, and what they can do if there is a crisis, whom they can talk to, and what happens after the crisis, how they can start the recovery. So those kinds of voice messages, WhatsApps, local coordination systems help convert information into action. And there is also a helpline number in, please move on to the next slide. There is also a helpline number in all our messages where you can actually see how, if they have need for any information as to where to go and whom to ask and how to get the information, they can actually call back and we will guide them to the right people and the right channels. Next slide, please. So to close, I would say this, that people do not suffer for temperature rise alone. They suffer when the rising temperatures meet inequality, meet intersectionalities, meet weak preparedness, and delayed response. Next slide, please. So if we want real heat resilience, we must identify vulnerable groups early. We need to convert warnings into named actions targeted to particular specific groups of people, and we need to strengthen the community systems before the heat peaks. That is, I feel, how we move from awareness to anticipatory actions. Next slide, please. So for me, heat resilience becomes real Only when the most vulnerable can act before the heat turns into harm. Thank you. I'll pause here.
Thanks a lot, Tibadrita. That was a really informative presentation, and I think it covered a lot of aspects of the work that Reliance Foundation does with communities. One particular thing that I picked up on and I really liked was community action is local, proactive, and one more thing that was there, and that was really the crux of working directly with communities and also having a community-led approach. Towards the end of your presentation, you did touch upon a topic that is central to today's theme, which is anticipatory action. And it's a topic, that we're still all exploring, we're still all discovering, and we're still trying to learn more and more about that. And at this point, I'm going to invite our next speaker, who is Imran Majid. So Imran is Director of Programs with ADRA India. And he has a lot of first-hand experience, working directly with communities in humanitarian settings, and also for the last few years, working specifically on extreme heat from an anticipatory action lens. So Imran, I'm going to ask you to unpack, this concept a little bit on, what is anticipatory action? How is it, different from seasonal preparedness? And why is it so important when, we talk about hazards like extreme heat? So yeah, the floor is yours for the next 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much, Rohan, for doing the great moderation, and thanks to all the panelists who have spoken till now, along with all the participants who joined. I think I would like to appreciate all the participants. We have reached 100 participation today, and we are still at 92, 95. It's great. It gives us confidence, and it gives us an idea that we are all aligned on the concept and subject of heat waves, working on the heat waves and in anticipation of it, because all of us are facing the heat, and we are all impacted in different ways. I may be impacted in a different way, the other person may be impacted in other way, and the person who is sitting outside directly under the sun, working, being hard labor, is impacted differently. And heat waves are no longer and isolated events now, or the seasonal events. I think they have become more frequent and longer term part of our life now. Even the heat has started now. We felt heat even in first week of March in Delhi. Then some rainfall happened in the Himalayan region, and Delhi felt little cooler for a couple of more weeks, but it had already begun in the early March. And winters also these days are not so very cold. They are like there is cold, but there is also that kind of warmth in it. Not necessarily the heat, but some temperature differences are there. So heat waves are now becoming more intense, more frequent, especially in the urban areas. It can be felt more, but rural areas are also getting now the impact of heat. I saw some texts from in the chat where the participants were saying that the colder regions, and I also belong to a colder region, they are also becoming hot now. They're also facing the heat waves, which was kind of not expected that these regions could face heat, like the region like Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh. They used to be the colder parts of the country, but now they are also facing these heat waves. While early warning systems have significantly improved over the period of time, with agencies like Indian Meteorological Department providing timely and accurate forecasts, the real challenge lies in translating these warnings into timely action on ground. That's what I think. I saw all the panelists speaking from the morning. How do we translate them on the ground? That is the bigger challenge, because all of us receive those texts sometime from IMD saying that this is rainfall is going to happen in this location, or some kind of thunderstorm, some kind of early warning messages we receive. Even we are not so sensitized or so serious about taking those messages seriously. We just ignore it. We just don't listen to it properly. That is the behavior of us who always talk about it and who always want this to happen. And we need, that shows us how serious, how how serious the communities would be about these messages. Because I think the most important thing for us is to build the trust on the early warning systems, the trust on the predictions, weather predictions. Weather predictions can go wrong. Like we have seen weather predictions coming, and then there is no rainfall, then there is no thunderstorm. But we have also seen that when the weather predictions are given, the rainfall, the thunderstorm, or whatever it is, it happens. So the key punchline is, it's always an prediction. Prediction can be true, it can be wrong. Sometimes it can deviate from how it was given. But I think we need to build that trust on these predictions, and I think we need to little bit deep dive a little more on how we can build that confidence on this. That is where the early actions will come into play. Too often interventions like begin only after the disaster events happen. Like we are talking about the heat waves. When the heat starts, then only the interventions start. We don't really activate our plans, activate our work before ahead of heat, or maybe when there is an early action, early warning given. So there has to be that mechanism in place. Like for example, there are a lot of interventions being done in multiple locations by different cities, by different authorities. Like for example, in India, in Delhi, the temperatures frequently cross 33, 35 degrees Celsius during its peak summer. I think last time it peaked up to 47 plus also sometimes. And despite early warnings issued several days in advance, responses often intensify only once hospitals begin reporting the cases, when they say they have received the cases of heat stroke, dehydration. When we hear on the news, there was a case when a person probably was struck by the heat stroke or something, and then we start thinking this is something serious and we need to work on it. Similarly, since we work in Amravati, whether extreme heat conditions are common there. Communities, especially daily wage workers, the farmers, they face direct livelihood losses when heat peaks. Yet, we were just a week before we were in Amravati, and it is already 43, 44 there. It like for us, it looked like in heat chamber we were in. It was so hot. So the, the farmers have already started facing the challenges and the losses on the livelihoods when it comes to their agriculture and all that. So anticipatory action in simple terms is just linking these forecasts to the predefined triggers and actions. We already have predefined triggers. IMD always tells us that when the temperature is 38 plus, it is then kind of early indication towards the heat wave. When it goes 40, it is still, when it crosses 40 plus, it is a heat wave. When it crosses 44 plus, it is the extreme heat wave. So these trigger mechanisms are already there. We don't have to reinvent something or create something new. But yes, we can contextualize these IMD triggers with the local communities and local contexts that we work in. So we have to just plan our actions as per these trigger mechanisms. When IMD says it's 38, what should we as communities do? What's the role of us as the civil society, as different organizations, multilateral organizations, UN organizations, or whosoever we are, or what is the role of the government that time? And then when it goes above 40, then we should define the role and responsibility, what the actions that we need to take. And when it crosses 44, then of course, then there is the response time. So I think we have to create our response mechanisms all across these trigger mechanisms and define it very well in all the contexts. And it can not be same for all. It has to be different for different cities, different for different districts and states also, because we as a country are so big. We have different regions, different temperatures, different traditional practices and methods also. So our context varies within few kilometers. While we always talk about the responses, how response mechanisms should be done, but we should also focus on how the early warning reaches to the communities. There is IMD, there is Sachet app. Even in the current context, when we are so advanced in the technology, I don't know how many people on this call have Sachet app downloaded on their phones. So I'm not sure. I also have such a phone on my phone, but honestly speaking, I'm not able to use it much. But we have to find different mechanisms of how do we embed this behavior into seeking early warning, and then using it for our families, our friend circle, our neighborhood, and then in general into the communities as well. So that is very important. But the practical solutions that we have seen happening and that we have kind of observed is how the role of youth, the Abdam Mitra concept that is there right now, that has been launched by NDMA, National Disaster Management Authority, across many states and across all the states, I would say. Those Abdam Mitras and other frontline workers, how we created, like I can give an example of Himachal Pradesh where we were working. So we created a system of panchayat level disaster management resource center, which was acting as an bridge between the early warnings that they receive from the IMD at the state level, and then the disaster management department receives those early warnings, and disaster management department at state level sends it to the district level, where they have the district disaster management authority, and DDMA, district level disaster management authority, sends those early warnings to the panchayat level committee that we formed, that ADRA formed in there. And then this panchayat level committee used to translate this early warning into the communities using different methodologies. They were either, they had those WhatsApp groups where they used to share this message. They used to do those miking announcements, because we have those religious places in the communities where there are already mics installed, or if that is not there, then they used to have those megaphones on which they used to do announcements on early warnings. And also the people who we engaged in the panchayat level, this disaster management unit, are frontline workers, Abda Mitras, are the local leaders, community leaders. They also always connect with the people. They have their own connections and links with the people. They always meet people. So that is how this early warnings used to translate in there. And I think that is something which we have to do. We have to go back to our work that we used to do traditionally on disaster risk reduction and preparedness. I think that is the same model we can create for and active. We can create and activate for anticipatory action. We should not forget the old work that we have done. When we talk about capitalizing and leveraging traditional methods from community, we should also capitalize on the traditional methods from the sector that sector used to do in the beginning. We used to create those community level groups and translate the early warning early warning through those groups, the task forces, into the communities, penetrating to the every household for their information and preparedness. So I think those similar models can be activated at all levels and all the communities to penetrate the early warning, and that is where this anticipatory action can be possibly activated and acted on. I recently was in Bihar. We were actually analyzing how heat action plan can be linked with the how the Narega, which now is GRAMG, can have heat action plan embedded into its work. So we met IMD there, and IMD state director, he mentioned how they are coordinating with a park in Nalanda district in helping them to adjust the irrigation schedules by giving them early warnings, which help us in reducing the water usage. It helps us in treating and recycling the water, and kind of helping them to proposition supplies for the water, to make sure when they have a dry spell, IMD tells them that this period is going to be the dry spell for you in your region. And the park authorities, who manage that park, they preposition water to, so that it can help them to have sufficient water in that dry spell. And when IMD tells them this is going to rain for this period of time, they don't give more water to the plants there, because they know that it's going to be rainfall, and rain comes, they don't need to give extra water. So that is how this IMD forecasts can help us, weather forecasts can help us in planning our community level actions, and help us save lives, help us help us prevent the impact on the vulnerable sections of the communities, and also agricultural losses that we face. So to truly operationalize anticipatory action at scale, there are several shifts that are needed. First, there must be clearly defined triggers. That is very important. If we don't have triggers, I don't think we will be able to activate anticipatory action in any case. So those triggers are very important, and we should have standard operating procedures that translate forecasts into action without delays. For example, a forecast of temperature exceeding 42 degrees Celsius in Delhi or in any other place would automatically trigger actions such as activating cooling centers, rescheduling outdoor work, intensifying health outreach, awareness, or activating those cool spaces wherever. Second, access to flexible and pre-approved funding is crucial. The financial solutions that are very important, as early action often requires quick mobilization of resources before a crisis escalate. Another thing, data needs to be localized and actionable, ensuring that frontline workers can interpret and
जब हमारे
use.
इंतजार में थी ना बात कर दिलिए सब जगह से पैसा दे ली 40,000 में दे
कैन आई
पैसा
रिक्वेस्ट
दिए ले
प्लीज
ली
आप म्यूट कर लीजिए अपने आप को.
Yeah. So finally, I think the continuous capacity building of
काम
frontline
की करता हो सब
actors
अपन
is a
नखने
must.
वो
Nupur, can I request you to mute all if that's possible?
Yeah. So I was saying, while all the other things are important, finally the continuous capacity building of frontline actors such as ASHA workers, Anganwadi workers, and community volunteers is essential to sustain these efforts. In our context in India, where heat is a slow onset but high impact disaster, yet not categorized as disaster, but kind of it may turn into a disaster anytime. Anticipatory action must also be integrated into broader systems such as heat action plans, public health strategies, and livelihood programs. So yeah, ultimately, we already know when heat waves are coming. The real question is whether we act in time or not. Anticipatory action offers us that pathway. So let's all figure out those triggers, work with the communities, build the capacities, and act ahead of time based on the triggers that we have. Thank you very much, all of you, for listening patiently. Over to you, Rohan.
Thanks a lot, Imran. Thanks. I think you covered some important aspects, especially the point on technology. How can we leverage that also to, yeah, so you're getting some thumbs up and applause also. I think that point on technology and leveraging that was, key. And also because we have someone from the IMD to really, help us unpack that and also understand that a little better. So, Dr. Akhil Srivastava, who's a scientist with IMD, thank you so much, sir, for joining us and taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us here. So picking up on the discussion that we've had this afternoon, we've started with, Meghna touching upon, all the work that GIZ has been leading in partnership with NDMA, in various geographies and targeting, some marginalized communities that are at most risk from extreme heat. And then Dr. Aditi, of course, talking about the state response and, everything that at the state level the machineries are doing. Debadrita introduced us to, a community-led approach and touched upon anticipatory action. And now, Imran has helped us unpack that concept a little bit more. So, Dr. Akhil, we would be, grateful if you can also help us unpack a little bit from the, the side of not just leveraging technology, but also the, the role that data plays in all of this. We know that without good data, without proper forecasting, triggers, like Imran mentioned, it's very difficult for even, organizations like us that work on the ground to really have an effective and impactful program with communities. So, as IMD, the apex body in India, that's looking at the data side, the forecasting, the predictions, all kinds of analysis when it comes to extreme heat. We'd love to hear from you a little bit around that, Dr. Akhil, on understanding heat risk. How do we use this data to make informed decisions? How can we create more holistic programs? Once organizations like us also have access to quality data. So yes, without further ado, Dr. Akhil, over to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me to a very relevant topic. We are in the middle of high temperature zones. I think across country we are seeing these high temperatures now. So, my previous speaker was also talking about the anticipatory actions with respect to the warnings, early warning services provided by IMD. So, I will be just starting from something on the similar lines. I hope you all are aware about the fact that Indian Meteorology Department has moved considerably from the traditional methodology whereby we were only forecasting the weather parameters. Now, what we are trying to do is in addition to the traditional weather forecasting, that is the physical event, we also try to predict and tell what that weather is going to do for different sectors. Okay, that means what it is going to do for human health, what it is going to do for the agriculture, how it will be impacting the livestock, what it will do to our infrastructure, what it will do to the Indian railways, highways, aviation sector. So you name a sector, there is an impact of different kind of weather. For temperature, high temperatures, they impact, I think, almost all the sectors. If you name any sector, there will be some direct or indirect impact of these weather features. So what IMD has been started, I think 2016 and then 2019 in a very big way, that we have started providing some generalized impacts also, that what that kind of weather will bring the impact in different sectors. So the focus has shifted toward the consequences of that weather and what sort of human impact it will bring. So earlier we were talking about the metrics like magnitude, duration, thresholds. Now, in addition to that, we are also trying to understand about the vulnerability, exposure, hazard. So that is the addition of the enlargement of the domain what IMD is now currently looking into it. So if we just understand it in a very simple way. So earlier IMD used to say it will be 45 degrees centigrade temperatures tomorrow. So, but now what IMD says is that tomorrow will be 45 degrees centigrade, and at this temperature, outdoor workers will face threatening conditions with respect to the high temperatures, and there should be some work rest protocol should be in place so that they should not get stressed because of this heat. So this is the kind of shift which has taken place with respect to the traditional forecasting systems. So again, bringing to the same point, in all these impact forecasting, whenever we are talking about all the impact forecasting, the context become very, very important. So, for example, I should say that if suppose there is the 42 degree centigrade temperature in some coastal city with the humidity of 70%, that can create havoc. Even though there is not much impact when you've got similar kind of temperature in the drier part of the country. So if you've got 45 degrees centigrade in a desert city with 15% humidity, it will have comparatively lesser impact. Although you will have a lesser temperature in the coastal areas with higher humidity, it can have a larger impact. So it is all about the context. Identical temperatures, they produce very different health impacts based on humidity, urban morphology, population vulnerability, and infrastructure, of course. So the context becomes very, very important, and there is the challenge. When IMD is forecasting, that context information at times becomes very difficult to access, or it is not readily available at that granularity in which we expect to give the forecast. So to take it further, if we talk about with respect to this impact forecast only, then again another very important concept which we talk a lot about is the urban heat island. That is, in the urban areas, you have got some pockets where you can have a temperature which will be roughly around 5 to 15 degrees centigrade hotter than the rest of the places in the city. So these information, all these kind of information, these are also dynamic informations. This depends on how the infrastructure is developing, what sort of facilities are made available over there, what sort of new industries, new highways, all things are developing at a very high pace. Also, what kind of density, population density is established over that particular region. So all those things, just to try to imagine now what sort of data is required to have a understanding of these kind of scenarios. So this is not only for one city, it's for the country like India. It's a big country with different topography, with different density of population, with different cultural practices, different social practices. We have got different kind of agriculture, climate domains. Everything is different in different parts of the country. So ultimately, what is happening is that weather stations, which IMD has put up, they are at times not capturing these microclimates within the cities where millions of people live and work. However, then we try to append it with the help of satellite-based hyperlocal mapping, which we try to use for giving the impact-based forecast. So to give any impact-based forecast, again, we need some kind of thresholds. Now these thresholds, what these threshold means is that suppose what IMD has been traditionally doing is that we have got some set criteria for declaring the heat wave. If for a station which is a plain station, if maximum temperature crosses 40 degrees centigrade and it is above normal by 4.5 degrees centigrade, we call it as a heat wave. But that heat wave is with respect to the meteorological parameter. That threshold is with respect to the meteorological parameter. Now, if we consider human health in between, so in human health is also getting impacted by the humidity. So once humidity comes into picture, we cannot only deal with the maximum temperature or minimum temperature. We have to see what sort of impact that humidity will bring into picture. So now we have to include the thresholds with respect to humidity and temperature together. Now again, to make it a little more elaborate, suppose we are talking about the daytime temperature, heat, which we call it heat wave, maximum temperature. Now imagine if the daytime temperatures are on the higher side, but again the nighttime temperatures are again on the higher side. So that means the human body which was getting some respite from heat in the night, that it will not get in night also. Ultimately, what it is doing, it is increasing the stress on the human body, ultimately impacting the human health. So now we have to deal with the max minimum temperatures also, their threshold also. So we have got some threshold based on meteorological parameters, whereby we give the warning. However, now when all these parameters are coming together, it makes it a very complex problem that what should be the threshold ultimately to define or to declare a impact with forecast for heat wave. So what we have done in IMD is that at present, we are trying to utilize all these parameters to generate a sort of a guidance so that we can provide information on the kind of impact that particular high temperature event could have. So I am talking about high temperature event because yes, heat wave is there, but sometimes if warm night is there, it still can have the similar kind of impact. But only the main focus always goes on the heat wave. However, there have been many studies which have shown that the mortality number becomes even greater when we have got nighttime temperatures on the higher side in addition to daytime temperatures. So that means you are not getting relief during the night time also. Similarly, with respect to health, these are the parameters. But now we have also expanded to provide some information with respect to different socio-economic parameters, with respect to economic activities also, livelihood mechanism also. Suppose if a worker is going out for working, so what should be the duration for which he can work comfortably, or what should be the work rest protocol when he is working outside in a high temperature regime? When he is in the direct sunlight, what should be the protocol which has to be followed? So these all questions are there which needs a lot of data. And this data is in general not the meteorological data, but it is the data which is available with these particular sectors. So last year in IMD, we were visited by a few people from different associations. And you will be, surprised to know these associations were Rickshaw Puller Association, Street Vendor Association, Gig Workers Associations, and a few others. So they visited IMD, and last year, April, I'm talking about. So they came to IMD, they talked about like they want to understand the heat wave forecast and warning, how it can help them. So we discussed with them, we tried to understand what is exactly their requirement. So this is one way that we got some information in a qualitative format from them based on the data, their experiences which is available with them. And what we did is that we started providing them the information in the way in which they required it. Also, there was a participation from their side that we created a WhatsApp group. In that WhatsApp group, there were people from these associations. So we were putting the message in a very small format, in a very simple Hindi language, no technical jargons, just some small impact information so that they can use it. Now, how they amplified it is that they went to their different markets. In that markets, they put up big blackboards and they started writing on a daily basis. The temperature is going to be 42 degrees centigrade tomorrow. So take these precautions, drink plenty of water, take rest in between the work, so on and so forth. So what it actually did, transformed is that it made them a stakeholder, a partner in actions to save themselves, and we were also able to convey our information based on their inputs. So this is what is actually about the impact based when we are talking about the different sectors. Last year, I think we started providing the dedicated heat wave bulletins for Indian Railways. So now if we talk about these sectors, so for Indian Railways, for example, we are providing the information that which particular stations will be facing what kind of temperature scenarios, what kind of heat wave scenario will be there on which particular railway line, in which railway network, which will be heat stressed, what sort of generalized actions could be taken in different stations as well as for the different railway lines. So now you imagine that for each sector, we need to provide this information. But when we want to provide this information, we need to have the information from these sectors, that what is required, what is the requirement from these sectors when they are talking about the heat wave or the high temperatures. Because it will not be the same for different sectors. Like it is not for same for different regions, it will not be same for different sectors. For agriculture, even if you have got that higher temperatures during growing period or when there's a grain filling period, leave about the heat wave period when there's the particular threshold. Even if the temperatures are on the higher side during February, March, they impact the different kind of rabi crops. So for each of these sectors, there are different kind of impacts, and for each of these impacts, there are different thresholds. So we are trying to retrieve this information from different stakeholders. We are trying to enter in different kind of collaborations and joint studies to understand the requirement, and then we are trying to put those requirements into the operational scenarios and provide the information which is more actionable, because ultimately the utility of early warning is that when early actions can be taken from it. Further, there was some discussion about the anticipatory actions. So in that sense also, I would like to bring into the notice that IMD is currently following a seamless forecasting system. So what I mean by seamless forecasting system, particularly if I give an example of heat wave. So in the beginning of the season, IMD issues the forecast with respect to maximum temperature, minimum temperature, their departures from the normal, as well as the heat wave scenario. So 3 months in advance, this information is provided on a spatial map, that which regions are going to be heat stressed, which regions are likely to see more heat wave as compared to the normal conditions. So this is issued in the beginning of the season for next 3 months. So it was issued for this particular year also from March, April, May month, and in the beginning of the April month, it was issued for the April, May, and June month. This particular forecast, which we call it as a seasonal range forecast, it then gets complemented by the monthly forecast. So in addition to the seasonal forecast for each of the month, IMD issues the outlook with what is going to happen for that particular month for different parts of the country, and what sort of heat wave situations can be seen for different regions of the country. So that means we have got a seasonal range that is for 3 months, which is further augmented by a monthly forecast. Now, in addition to this monthly forecast, every Thursday, IMD is issuing next 2 to 4 weeks forecast for different weather parameters. For heat wave particularly, we are issuing next 2 weeks outlook for the extended range. That means every Thursday we tell which region of the country is having what sort of probability for heat wave on a weekly basis for week 1 and week 2. In addition to that, we also provide the regions which are likely to see above normal maximum temperatures, below normal maximum temperatures, and what will be the range of these above normal maximum and below normal maximum temperatures. Similarly, for warm nights as well as minimum temperature, these are provided. So further, the seasonal range is supported by monthly. Now monthly forecast is supported by extended range. Then with extended range, other than in addition to extended range, every day IMD issues short to medium range forecast for next 7 days on a day-to-day basis. So ultimately, if you see, so we are providing the forecast for a different forecast temporal domains. Now there is a particular purpose for these particular forecasts. If some forecast is issued for seasonal to monthly range, it provides an opportunity for the anticipatory actions. There should be preparatory actions from different stakeholders, pre-season exercises, refresher courses, mock drills, etc. When we are going from short to medium range forecast, it requires some sort of actions based on the impact-based color-coded forecast which is issued by IMD. So it's a complete seamless forecasting system which provides the input with respect to anticipatory actions as well as immediate on-ground actions based on the guidelines which are issued by different disaster management authorities. So if we talk about different kind of forecast, like I told in the beginning also, so IMD is issuing the forecast with respect to temperatures, heat wave, their impact. However, it is also very important to understand when IMD issues the forecast, it assigns a color with that particular forecast. Now, a lot of times the color is not being properly understood by the people at large. Now, this color, when we are assigning, it takes into consideration the different meteorological parameters which can have an impact on the aggravating the impact of heat waves. For example, when we are issuing some color, we take into consideration what is the maximum temperature scenario, what is its situation with respect to the normal conditions in general, what is the impact of current impact of minimum temperatures and its departures from the normal, what sort of impact is with respect to the percentile status. Percentile status means that whether it is in the top 2% category of a temperature event or top 5% category or top 10% category. What it does is that it provides you an idea that whether people have seen that kind of event or they are acclimatized to those kind of events or not. Also, we are considering the relative humidity, we are considering the wind speeds, we also consider the persistence of all of these, whether it's the first day of a heat wave event, third day of a heat wave event, or a seventh day of a heat wave. So all these conditions are considered, and then a color code has been decided based on the consensus forecast, consensus developed between all the officers of India Meteorology Department across the country through a video conferencing every day in morning. So once this is decided, then the forecast is then issued to different stakeholders, including general public, media, and it is also sent to different cap, like someone talking about Sachet also. So all those mediums are then used. So these information are sent to different mediums, whatever is available within the India Meteorology Department. It includes mass media, social media, through print media, electronic media, through its bulletin website. Also, I would like to bring one more point into consideration now with the Mausam-gram. IMD has come to a point that anyone can access the weather forecast for any location of the country just by a click of a mouse or through the Mausam app. It's such a feature. I will request everyone to at least Google and search mausamgram.imd.gov.in. In that, you can click anywhere on this map and you will get the weather forecast and warning for next 7 days. So in fact, you can also put in that particular map the location in terms of pin code, your city name, district name, everything is available over there. So it is just like the information on the weather forecast now is available round the clock at all the places of the country. So we are not in a situation that we don't have a forecast for this particular location. However, to make it more specific for sector, we are handling it sector by sector. So a lot of other ancillary information from these sectors will be required to generate the thresholds and provide the customized impact-based forecast and warning for these sectors. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Akhil, for sharing all that is happening at IMD and all the new innovations and initiatives that are being taken up at IMD for the overall benefit, I think, of all stakeholders involved. Particularly, your last point on utilizing the Mausam feature, I think everyone should be really plugged into that because and I've used it a couple of times, and it really provides, useful information. It's real time, and like you said, that, it's also very localized. So I think, in a way, when you're looking for quality accessible data at a very micro level, I think it's a really good initiative, sir. So thank you so much for sharing all those details with us. I know we are running over time a little bit, 10 minutes over, but I think we can still open up the floor for any questions to any of our panelists. I'll request people to please, if you have a question, raise your hand and please introduce yourselves, your name, which organization you're with, and where in India or abroad are you located. And if you have a question for a specific panelist, uh, please, please let us know who this question is for. I think we have one question from Mr. Abdul Rahman. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, very good evening, everyone. Yeah, thanks, Rohan. Thanks for this valuable information. This is for Mr. Imran Masjid and Akhil. See, I'm Abdul Rahman calling from Chennai. We are doing a NGO basically. We are doing a holistic mangrove restoration for the past 27 years in Pulicat Lake with the community support of the tribal families and other NGO stakeholders also. In terms of restoration, now the entire climate changes has been a lot of changes happened on the heat resilience to the Pulicat Lake. It's very Tiruvallur district, 40 kilometers from Chennai. So irrespectively, we are doing the participation with all the schools and colleges, with the local stakeholders, availing the importance of mangroves, which can resilience the heat resistance indirectly in the coastal area. Apart from that, the wetland conservation is also being protected accordingly with this. So it's a platform to elaborate this and to welcome these stakeholders to get participated in Tamil Nadu, who is willing to do the plantation part on resilience of heat to protect the ecosystems. That is my consideration to put on this floor.
Thank you, Abdul Rahman. Maybe we can take another question. Any thought?
Rohan, I see some questions in the chat as well.
Sure. I think in the chat, people have been asking very specific questions to the panelists, and I think there's a conversation that's already going around on that. If there are any questions that I may have missed, please let me know. No.
Yeah. There's a question on any reliable and consolidated data sets for heat wave days and health impacts, especially casualties and hospitalization in India after 2023.
Okay. Thank you, Nupur. Since this question is not, I mean, the participant has not identified who they want to ask this to, I think we can open it up if any of the panelists wants to take this question.
Can you repeat the question, Nupur? Sorry, I didn't hear it properly.
I'll do that, Imran. The question is, do we have any reliable and consolidated data sets for heat wave days and its health impacts like casualties and hospitalizations in India after 2023? So after this question, I'll go to Miss Subhashri Panda, who has raised her hand.
I honestly don't. I'm not aware of any such data available right now. Maybe others can also, other panelists can also support me on this. But as Mr. Akhil Shrivastava sir mentioned that IMD is now transitioning to present this data on the health, on the different kinds of, on the temperature, the weather, and how it impacts the different sectors and thematics. So I think that is something that may help us in future. But right now, I don't think there is a consolidated data available at one place on how the rising temperatures have impacted the health, specifically in a consolidated way. It is there. Different organizations have done different studies in different locations. It is in fragments, not in a consolidated manner. Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Imran.
actually, this heat wave data is available with IMD because we have got all the climatological data set with us.
Right.
Regarding health data, that is a little bit concern because we don't have much of the accessibility to health data. However, NCDC, National Center for Disease Control in Ministry of Health, they have started on surveillance program and they have been collecting the data on the heat-related illness. So that is HRI, they call it. So that is available, but still, I mean, it's. I think it will take a little bit more time to have that kind of data set available for use by all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think the question from Abdul Rahman, I think it was not a question. He was kind of sharing the work that they're doing. It's a great work, I would say, working in with mangroves and kind of rejuvenating biodiversity is great. That is the only solution by which we can actually reduce the temperatures, reduce the heat. That is definitely preparedness to serve communities better in addressing the heat issue. Maybe not anticipatory action, but yes, preparedness, it helps. It helps, and it is great. You're doing great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks, Imran. Subhashri, over to you. And then the last question we'll take from the chat. Someone has a question in the chat, and then, yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Rohan. Thank you. Thank you for the amazing panel. I'm Dr. Subhashri from Heidelberg Institute of Global Health. So my question is to Dr. Meghna from GIZ. So, ma'am, you talked about gap analysis and active recommendations to the following states and partners. But as far as I know, Tamil Nadu, for that matter, has been working on many of these recommendations, like building shaded areas for gig workers. And their active themes has always been providing funding of around 100 crores that I heard in the forum as of last, to provide informal sector and gig workers their share of shade and cooling areas. Now, when we provide recommendations, GIZ also works on a lot of grants that is provided both globally and nationally. And if this is an incentive-based model, and if states are given a subsequent amount of pooled funds to actually bring that action into practical insights and practical steps, then I think that could be a better way to go other than recommendations, because we know that the problem exists and we know that there is a way to correct it. But are we actually providing these state and local partners to bring the action? And in your insights about GIZ, do you think there are any grants available in terms of this domain that states can actually step up to and bring action really? Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Shubhashri. Firstly, you need to understand. So GIZ basically is a technical cooperation agency, works on behalf of German government. So we are not the funding agency. We do not provide any grant or any such thing directly to the government or to any of the kind of the local communities, vulnerable communities. So that's absolutely not our role to play there. What we generally do is that whatever development cooperation money that being given to GIZ to implement through different means, which is basically training, capacity building, and testing the pilots on ground with the vulnerable community, and then showcasing the evidence against the policy measures or against the recommendations that have been gathered through the landscape assessment. So that's basically our role, and that is what our landscape assessment report also suggests, that even though there are a couple of things happening from the government side, from the Ministry of Finance side, Ministry of Rural Development and all, including the NDRF money or the fund that comes for the disaster risk financing, even then there are a couple of these other areas where you can mobilize vulnerable community and ask them to see how these kind of things happens. Because see, ultimately the role, like your answer was in your question itself, because you can provide them money, you can provide them grant, but that's not sustainable, that's not the plan. Because until unless they themselves feel for that, we have to give them training and evidence how they can do this amongst themselves, like mobilizing themselves, having the credit and threat group kind of a mechanism. And that's how then they have to take it forward. Because any project, any agency will be there for maximum 3 years or 5 years, even the government policy programs and the governments, both in center and states. So what we are trying to do is identifying the gaps, giving them some pilot tested models, and then mobilizing them, training them how they can then take it further. So that's our role here.
Thank you, ma'am. That answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Meghna. Thank you, Meghna. Just one last question we'll take that's in the chat, and then Nupur, over to you for the vote of thanks. So the last question in the chat is for Imran Majid, and the question is by Mr. Ali. From a community level implementation perspective, how can anticipatory action for heat waves be operationalized in a simple and scalable way in a setting which is in a low resource setting? Imran, this question has been directed towards you, so
Yeah.
maybe you can take that, and if anyone else also wants to add, please.
Yeah, just like as I said in the while I was doing my part of the session, the community level, see, the capacity lies in the community. It is just we have to get hands on how do we define those triggers for early action. In heat waves, we have to get hands on to the IMD data that comes in and decide our triggers based on that. Like what would be it when IMD says that the heat is coming, like maybe in a city like Delhi, we say heat comes when it is 33, but in a place like Kashmir, if it goes above 25, it is heat. Or 22, it is heat. So it depends on different contexts and communities where we have to define our triggers. So best thing is to define your triggers and then use your internal community resources. You have the frontline workers in the community. You have Gram Panchayat there. You have the local level government officials who can help you. You have the PHC, you have the ICDS, you have the school. So everything, all the resources are at the community level, and then you need to come together as a group to disseminate this information further and work on a collective contextual plan on how do we prevent our communities and map out your traditional methods. Like, for example, how do we what have been we doing traditionally to prevent ourselves from heat, and those things are still relevant, and those things are in this age of technology and AI. I think we still have these traditional methods that are very effective and very relevant in preventing lives and saving lives. So I think we need to a little bit come together. The main point of contention is coming together as a community, defining those triggers, pulling together the mechanisms, the traditional methods that we have been using and doing, and connecting with the relevant stakeholders that are there at the community level, from government authorities, maybe civil society organizations who are there to help and support on how these mechanisms and methods can be streamlined further. So yeah, those are the ways. But we also have we're also kind of preparing a lot of IEC from this project, and also NDMA, other SDMAs are also providing a lot of IEC. I think we need to get hands on that also to see how we can utilize and capitalize on that IEC in responding to the situations. Yeah, thank you, Rohan.
Thank you, Imran. And thank you everyone for joining and for the rich discussion and your participation even until the end. I know we are running over time, but the questions kept coming. So thank you everyone for participating so enthusiastically. We are really grateful that you were able to join us today on this very important topic. I'm going to hand over now to Nupur to close. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
So much, Rohan. And thank you for moderating this discussion today. It was really enlightening to hear different experts and also experiences of different stakeholders on this topic. And so just to conclude this, I would like to say that Sphere India, along with ADRA India, is taking up a lot of work on anticipatory action. So this webinar is not just a one-off discussion, but rather how we can take the learnings from this discussion, how we can document it and disseminate it in our wider network. So that's the plan and that's our intention going forward. So we hope to continue these kind of discussions and engagements with all of you. And yeah, so with that, I formally thanks everyone for joining the discussion today. I would like to especially thank all of the panelists who joined us today, Dr. Akhil, Meghna, Dr. Aditi, Dibadrita, Imran, and of course Rohan for moderating the discussion. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
So with that, we'll close the meeting. Thank you.